Hello everybody and welcome to another Arkham Horror List video. Today we are going to be chatting about 5 cards that we've had the biggest variance and opinion on. So this can be like we had a meh opinion to an exciting opinion, we had a we love this card to not so much anymore, or just whatever, honestly whatever Bryn might throw some curveballs in. Bryn usually throws a curveball or two in. But let's dive in. Let's get to our number 5s, starting with you, Bryn.
So I have chosen to interpret this as number of points on the graph that this card has moved in total, regardless of where it sits now compared to where I originally would have had it, you know? When Survival Knife came out, I was hype about this. I thought this card was better than Machete. It costs 1 less, you get a free attack. It's fucking sick. And then very shortly after I started playing it, I realized that, in fact, this card is not better than Machete.
Dang.
It is mostly worse.
Yeah.
I'm kind of back to, like, Survival Knife's pretty all right. I don't mind playing this as like my 3rd and 4th weapon in my deck. I'm pretty okay with that. Even my 2nd and 3rd if my signature is a weapon.
Yeah. Yeah, because I remember when this one came out, you played the heck out of it. I do remember that.
I mean, the card is sick.
Yeah, and I mean, like, upgraded...
Just not as sick as I thought.
Yeah, and upgraded, I mean, like, we're not talking about, like, this is specifically the level 0 Survival Knife. Because upgraded Survival Knife is, like, the bomb. It's incredible, but...
Yeah. It is the bomb.com. The upgraded Survival Knife is the truth.
Sick.
But yeah. This one has had it's moved a whole lot on the graph. It's just sitting at a very similar point to where it was at the beginning.
Yeah, that's kind of like how some of mine also go. Because I've varied, like, there's been where it's like, like my stock portfolio right now. It goes down and then never goes back up. But, that's just life right now. But that's kind of like my thoughts on some of these cards too. They kind of vary all over the place. My number 5 is Ancient Evils. And I'm going to expect somebody in the comments to yell at me about this, but I don't think Ancient Evils is that scary of a card anymore. When I was first playing this game, Ancient Evils, I'd hate it. I'm like, how dare you? You stole 9 actions from me. What the heck? But Ancient Evils is entirely fair. What makes Ancient Evils not fair is that you shuffle the discard into the encounter deck on act and agenda flips. That's where Ancient Evil becomes kind of like where it gets its bad rap, in my opinion. Like, still, I'm always going to ward of protection in Ancient Evil. But if I miss warding protection in Ancient Evil, I'm like, oh, that's fine. It's basically like a Mythos card that, to me, at this point in my lifespan of this game, doesn't do anything. I'm like, cool, I don't have an enemy I need to spend actions on. I can make up the tempo I lost, or I'm already so far ahead at tempo that at this point now, Ancient Evils is just like, cool, all right, what's next? Which is kind of crazy. When I remember my first time in this game, this card was legitimately the scariest thing I've seen in my life. But now at this point, I'm happy to see an Ancient Evils, which is kind of wild to me. So thank you, Bryn, for saying one of your future suggestions, including non-player cards, because this reminded me of that perfectly, and it's so much better than what I would have been, which is talking about Stunning Blow again for another week.
I mean, Stunning Blow is pretty alright.
It is pretty alright, but I've talked about it much too much lately. Travis, what's your number 5?
This is Flashlight. I've gained a lot of respect for this card since it first came out. I saw that it wasn't like there's no anyone who could really abuse it or make a ton of good use of the core set, especially the limited card pool, and it came alongside Knife, which is just like garbage fighter item, and so this kind of got slotted in my mind as like garbage investigating item. But it's actually pretty good.
Would you say that making the new player guides and stuff for the channel is what kind of made you look at Flashlight more in a better light? No joke intended, YouTube. Please don't yell.
I wouldn't say that exclusively, but it definitely contributed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I just like the headspace of playing the flashlight and somebody who's not great at investigating, and you use it 3 times and you get no clues. And your teammate's like, "What did you do? Yeah, bring the flashlight over here." And you're like, you've just been sitting there toggling it on and off, and you're like, the battery's dead."
Yeah. Man, so because like if we go in the headspace that the supplies are batteries, how long are you putting that light on to get that -2 shroud?
I mean, it is what, like 1920. The bulb cannot be efficient.
That
The
is
batteries
true.
can't be very good either.
And honestly, it seems like a bright flashlight from that image. All right, let's go to number 4. Bryn, what's yours?
I got sleight of hand. This one is like cheating a little bit because the reason that my opinion on it has changed is because Fantasy Flight has literally changed what it does on 3 separate occasions. Uh, it's sort of like moving goalposts, and one of them really sucked. One of them you could only put level 0 things into play, and it was just
Yeah.
sort of like, why do I care?
That was
None of these
a
are any
dark
good.
time for Bryn.
Yeah, like, fine, we just won't play with this card. Yeah, well, I mean, in fairness, as printed, there are some truly degenerate things you can do, uh, particularly involving yellow card. This is just another example of green suffering for yellow's sins, but like particularly involving yellow cards, like one yellow card in particular. Not naming any names, the Necronomicon.
Daisy's Necronomicon? I don't think that one's that strong.
But you know who you are.
Yeah. My number 4 here is Well Connected. This also could be Dark Horse, because they kind of like sit in the same spot for me, where one of them, Dark Horse, has gone down, and one of them, Well Connected, has gone up. I used to love the Dark Horse style of play. Like I'll still enjoy playing Dark Horse, and I'll have like a fine time doing Dark Horse. But with now that the card pool is so big, it's number 1, easy to get resources because Faustian Bargain just gives you them for like practically nothing. And 2, it's just that there's so much fun, more fun stuff you can do by actually playing cards. So early on, I liked the archetype where you were like putting your money into cards or like spending all your money, and then like you get rewarded with it with more stats. But now at this point with the card pool, it's like you're paced really quickly with it. So Well Connected represents this idea that now, in terms of like an archetype switch for me, I like big money a hell of a lot more than I like no money. I used to love the poor style, and I still think like people like Finn can do Dark Horse really well. But overall, I'm way down on Dark Horse, way up on spending my money, and I think a big reason of that is because of Parallel Skids. He makes money like no one else can make money in this game. It's absolutely wild, and he's a blast when you're rich and you get the level 2 or 3 Well Connected, and you're just like, you like literally are just. It's really fun. So that's what this represents. My switch in that Dark Horse down, Well Connected up. We making money now, folks. Travis, what's your number 4?
This is Flare. Flare, when it first came out, I think we were all kind of like not super hyped about, mostly because of the exile mechanic. Exile mechanic in general was kind of a feel bad for a long time. But it's only like been really recently that I've been playing with this card, and it's really, really good. Like, it's really good. Being able to like get +3 punch and +2 damage for an attack is kind of insane for 2 resources.
Yeah.
Especially a level 1 card. And then also being able to search the top 9 cards of a deck for an ally and just put it into play for 2 resources. It's also got a very relevant subtype and tactic.
Yeah.
There's lots to like about this card, and that didn't really appreciate before.
I think we would have been quicker to realize this if the first time one of us at the table pointing at me played Flare, I didn't just try to shoot into Bryn's deck each time. And, I actually just used it to kill something, because the kill thing is is a really nice option. I just never did it. I just always tried to get a Leo DeLuca from Bryn's deck. Oh, all right. What do we got next? Number 3, going to you, Bryn.
I got Dario Elamine. I used to think this card was insane. Like for an action, you just get 2 money, and then he gives you +1 brain and +1 book. Until one day it dawned on me that I was paying 14 money to get +1 to 2 of my numbers, along with the 2/2 soak. And I was kind of just like, why?
You just the math just clicked. You're like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
10 plus 4 is 14.
What am I doing? Yeah, and ever since then, I've kind of just been like, never again. Although, I will admit, with the advent of more big money cards, the cost of having to have 10 resources in your pool has been reduced.
Yeah.
So it's not so much 14. It was 14 when he came out, and this was probably the last time I played him, honestly.
Man, who knows? Maybe like if we revisit this list in the future, when you like do unscrupulous loan in Dario, you'll be like, Dario's back up, baby.
Let's go.
Just have to add 3 experience onto your 14 resources, and you're golden.
Play some sort of big money Bob Jenkins, maybe.
Oh, let's go.
Yeah.
But if that goes wrong, that would be horrible, because then you're like, I spent 2 of my 5 rogue cards on Dario.
I mean, if we're being real, it's actually 3 rogue cards because 2 of them are Faustian Bargain.
That is true, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
My number 3 here is Ritual Candles. This is a card that is the example I said where I was like really high on it, then I was like, this card is kind of just lame and poopy, and now I'm back to that really high point. We would play this card all the time when it first came out because our card pool was small, and now Mystics like had something to do with their hands. They're like, I know, I'll hold these candles. And then eventually I just stopped playing them because like I was like, these are poopy. They do nothing. And then Bryn recently played them again in his Dexter deck, I believe, because they cost 1. And that's a great rate of return for Dex's ability. And then I was thinking, wait a minute. These cards for 1 resource basically give you a Dark Horse for all of those tokens. And like, that is a lot of value for 1 resource. The hand slot can be competitive, I'm not going to deny that. But like, if you're not using your hands for anything, these just passively give you so much value over the course of the game for asking so little. If you have 2 out, you draw a Scald token, congratulations, you just committed an unexpected courage to your test, right? And I think also Bryn also, like, I think you've also said recently you were the higher on them now too than in that lull that we had, because they're just like, it's just value. It's just value over time.
Yeah. Yeah. You can, like, for 1 cost in your hand slot, you get to basically reduce the difficulty of all those symbols by 1.
Yeah.
It's kind of sick.
Yeah. Especially because there's so many that are also now like, if you fail by, like, if you succeed by 1, this happens, and now it's like you have to succeed by. Can't do that math. It's causing my brain to haywire. So I'm gonna just throw this to Travis for your number 3.
Sure, this is Leo DeLuca. Once upon a time, I thought this was like one of the best allies in the game, if not the best ally in the game. I looked at him in jealousy at his paying 6 money to get an additional action when all I got was 4 money for +1 book and a resource every time I investigated. Like a peasant. But yeah, long story short is that like Green has real cards now, and Leo is much less revered than he once was.
Yeah.
Paying like an extra action is sweet, but paying 6 resources for it is like oof.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not terrible if you're set up to do it, but there are so many green allies that do sweet things now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, like, say you play Lola Santiago, you get a stat bonus, and then you probably will get free actions out of it for what's going to probably equal the 6 resources that you would get out of Leo. Like, it's just outclassed now. If you have a small collection, though, like, if you have only the core set, he can still probably do fine, but... I'm with you on that,
He
Travis.
is still real good.
Yeah. Alright. Number 2, starting with you, Brent.
I got the Ghoul Priest. So once upon a time, like, long, long ago, I used to be very new at this game. And the first time I saw the Ghoul Priest, I was like, 5 health? Yeah, that's doable. 20 health? We can't ever kill that. That's impossible. But, yeah. Turns out it's very, not only possible, but, like, actually kind of not that hard. Like, Retaliate's a little scary because he does do a lot of damage, but he's also kind of easy to, make not do that. He's just nowhere near as scary as he once was. I was going to put Ermordoth on the list in this guy's place, but I realized I'm still, like, a little bit afraid of that. So...
It's kind of funny because if you look at Ghoul Priest outside of his scenario, his stats are actually kind of still pretty spooky, right? Like 4 attack, Retaliate, Hunter, he hits for 2 and 2. But in his he's so difficult because everything else in his scenario is pretty manageable. And I know, like, if you're a new player and you're watching this, you're like, what do you mean the Ghoul Priest is manageable? He literally kills me with his cool staff all the time. It happened to us too. And one day you too will look at the Ghoul Priest and laugh.
Yeah, it turns out just about every scenario these days has an enemy that looks something like this. At least half the scenarios have an enemy where they're just like, yeah, this guy's got a big, stupid health number, and if you miss, he's gonna hit you. Like, all right.
But those MFers only have victory 1.
Yeah, this guy's got victory 2. He's... Not only is he, like, not that difficult to kill, but he also rewards you for doing it.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah. I'm just, like, if Ghoul Priest could show up in, like, every scenario I play, I would probably be pretty happy with that. You know?
Well, that's what we're going to do now, Bryn. We're going to shuffle the Ghoul Priest into every scenario we play.
The Ghoul Priest has followed us to Antarctica.
What the frick?
Who let this guy on the team?
My number 2 here is Scrounge for Supplies. This is a card that I was once really, really, really high on. Calling it so much that I think it was my number 3 for, like, a must-play Survivor card. At this point now, there's really just... It's probably just my playstyle, but there's just, like, no time for this anymore. Like, in my mind, I'm like, do I really pay... an extra action to get an extra lucky? And normally you would think that answer is yes. But because Lucky 3 is one of the strongest cards in this frickin' game, Scrounge for Supplies gets outclassed really quickly. And then, like, you can grab a Resourceful, which you can use to grab something else. But I think just, like, with how the card pool for this game is now, that's not as impressive as it once was. And I'll still probably play Scrounge for Supplies, but it now gets replaced pretty quick, and there's a good chunk of scenarios where I just don't even play it if it's in my hand anymore. And because it doesn't have any symbols, which rightfully should, the design I think is very elegant for this card, like I think it's a well-designed card, I just think at this point now it's more dead than it is alive for me when I play. So, Scrounge for Supplies I'm much more down on than I was before.
Yeah, I think it does depend entirely on what you're getting back.
Yeah.
Right, like if you're playing this card as copies 3 and 4 of, like, Sleight of Hand and you're a Sleight of Hand deck, like, sick.
Yeah, and I think that's why I think it doesn't work well for my playstyle, because I just ram my head into it until it works, right? I'm not trying to do... Like, I definitely respect that, right? Like, I think it's still a good card, it's just not as good for me anymore. Travis, what's your number 2?
This is Premonition. We used to play this card in every deck that could play it, and everybody was always happy to see it. And it's still a fine card, I think. It's definitely not bad, but we don't. It just doesn't do enough to justify a card slot anymore. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it's nice
Yeah.
to be able to plan around playing it to see who's going to do what on their turn, and maybe you can find them for higher player counts, like 3 or 4, but it's just, you'd rather be actually doing something with your cards.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the thing that this card is missing is that it doesn't have the spell subtype.
Yeah,
Or
maybe.
trait, I guess. Because like if you could draw this for free off of your not free, but draw this off of your arcane initiate,
Mm-hmm.
like this card is probably a lot better. Well, I guess most cards are a lot better when you can draw them at a lightning bolt for no real cost.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I get what
Yeah.
Travis is saying. It's just kind of like you draw it and you're like, oh, good. I guess I'll play this, right? And it just doesn't do much.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, if I could play this as part of like the forbidden kung fu technique, I probably would.
Because I mean, like, even if you
But,
like,
like,
you play this card, you draw the 0, and then you're like, cool. I guess I'll pass this test. Like, this kind of goes to like what you were saying with scrounge for supplies, Brent. This card gets better if you are doing something more busted with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to be doing something weird with it, like shooting someone with a sawn-off shotgun
Yes. Yeah.
or something like that.
All right. Let's go to our number ones.
Playing it with Song of the Dead. No, don't do that. That's just 2 bad cards.
All right. It's not a skull. You guys go. I'm gonna wait for that skull. Gonna play another premonition. Oh, frick! Not another skull. What the hell? All right, Bryn. What's your number 1?
We had Dr. Milan, Christopher. Back also in the dim mists of time, when I thought that the Ghoul Priest was scary, I also was fairly convinced that this man was binder fodder. Yeah. I'm going to let that statement stand on its own. I'm done here.
Yeah. I mean, we all weren't high on Dr. Milan. I watched the review back, and we were all just like, yeah, this card's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. My number 1 here is Take Heart. People are gonna yell at me for this one, but I just don't think this card's good. Like, it's good in like Stella, where you can get a bonus out of failing, but I just don't even think it's that. And like, I know that people are gonna, like, I can't even like defend it because like you look at the card, and it reads good. Turn a failure into drawing 2 cards and gaining 2 resources, right? Like that's kind of that sounds really good, but I don't enjoy playing it. I'm not looking at failing tests during my turn. I know it happens. I'm not looking to take tests that I fail. Like, my goal ultimately with this game is to pass 95% of my tests, right? And I'm not running Take Heart for those 5% cards, like 5% tests where I'll fail. And like, even like you could say, like, you can give it to somebody else. I'll still rather just run like a card that helps me win, as opposed to one that like I can turn a loss into that. It's like at this point now, I just find it so low value, so fiddly. And then I've watched you can pass the test. This has happened to Bryn many times. This card basically reads for Bryn, draw the Elder Sign when you commit this to a test.
I don't know what you're talking about. This card's sick.
This one reminds me a lot of Premonition too, where like at this point now I just feel like it's too low impact for me, and like it just kind of like doesn't do enough. And like now you just run Unrelenting in this spot, and like Unrelenting does what this card does, but like even better, because you get to pass the test, you get to draw cards, and like 2 investigators, they fucking break the game with it. Right? Like I don't like Take Heart, and it's the one that's probably had the biggest like almost like just like down drop for me. So yeah, that is my number 1. And Travis, what is yours?
My number 1 is Research Librarian. So this card's like, I've always known that it was like pretty good. It's tutor for a specific card type. Does take up your ally slot, kinda. Like it literally does, but he's super easy to get rid of, and you don't feel bad about throwing him away. But as they printed more and more really good tomes, this card's like broken.
Yeah.
It's just it's too good. The fact that they keep printing like incredibly strong yellow cards, like Necronomicon and the Prophecy Profana, and they just slap the tome subtype on them. This guy's like, hey,
He's like, I found your 5 experience book for you.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, thanks, bud.
You know, actually, now that you
Like,
say it,
just, yeah.
I wouldn't mind if this got tabooed to like a 6, and then like he has an upgraded one that turns into a 12. They can't do that upgraded one because the taboo is optional. But I think like if he had like a 9, like in most other searches, like a prepared for the worst.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you really actually, yeah. If you kind of compare this to prepared for the worst too, right? Because like a tome isn't as necessary as a weapon, right? But when you can find something busted,
I mean, your tomes quite often.
Yeah,
Some of the tomes are better than weapon. Most
yeah,
weapons.
agreed.
Yeah. Some tomes are weapons, man.
Wow.
Yeah, the card's pretty good.
Yeah, I have like a distinct memory of when we were talking about Daisy in the past, and Travis would always say, once she gets more tomes, like she's just going to become that much spicier when she gets more action tomes. And I suppose that is completely 100% true with Research Librarian as well. And we have those tomes now. Yeah.
What if you... So, Travis, would you rage quit if I played Research Librarian and I found Grimm's Fairy Tales?
No, I shake my head at you though. Who's deck are you playing that in anyway?
I don't know, Minty fan, I guess.
Oh, God.
Parallel Daisy.
Uh-huh.
I don't know, I got nothing.
Yeah. Sick. All right.
Two copies weren't enough.
Yeah. I needed to make sure I had my Grimm's Fairy Tale on turn 1 so I could get the most value out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it could speak of the devil, it could be in Carolyn Fern.
It could be in Carolyn Fern, you're right. So this week's patron contribution is from Victor. So any investigator try first as your first playthrough as a tutorial, and your objective is not to learn how to optimize your investigator. At first I thought she was the worst thing on earth. On my 3rd campaign playthrough, she showed how much of a boss she is. And my friends had the same experience with Ashcan, Wendy, and Joe Diamond. That's something that I'm also very guilty of. Like my first playthrough with a good chunk, any investigator that's not like I have a 5 in my stat, or like a 4 in my stat. I know it's the 5 in my stat. I'm like, this is garbage. I don't know what to do. I suck at this game. So I get that completely, especially with Carolyn. But even like when you like her card pool is so big. I remember Travis once saying like the Carolyn, like the ARKHAM DB, you build it and it could just like something can go wrong. And I played Carolyn and I was just like, this is too much. This is over. Just turn her into a seeker. Give me a magnifying glass and I'll get clues. That's all good.
Yeah, but that's the beauty of Carolyn. It's like she's even when you just like phone it in, she's good.
She's good. Yeah, no, she is really good. Yeah, agreed. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. We'll be back next week for another list video. What are some cards that have changed in your thought of how they are graded in the game for you personally? Let us know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching. Have a good one. And as always, GG's.